Mic check. Alright, what's up, YouTube? This is gonna be another guide, I guess, on how I scaled my damage. And again, if you don't like listening to people talk, this is not the video for you. What I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to explain to you the changes that I've made to the build, why I made those changes, and how I went about scaling my damage. So, I guess we can just hop right into the build. This is a Bleed Impale Gladiator. This build has seen so many changes since I started it. It has gone from Rain of Arrows, from where I started it at, to Split Arrow, to trying to use Split Arrow as a single target, back to Rain of Arrows. This little 6-link setup that I have in the bow is Rain of Arrows, Vicious Projectiles, Brutality, Mirage Archer. It's the anomalous because the Mirage Archer fires 2 additional projectiles. This was back when I had this build as Tornado Shot. Someone just rang the doorbell if you guys heard that. But yeah, I had this also as a Tornado Shot build, so I was using the anomalous Mirage Archer for the 2 additional projectiles. It has Assassin's Mark and the mark on hit support. This allows me to apply my marks while I'm mapping to rare or unique enemies, which gives it a lot of damage. I'll explain that later. For the single target, it's Anomalous Frenzy, which gives 1 additional projectile to Frenzy, which increases our damage. Vicious Projectiles, Impale support to increase our Impale chance, and the effect of Impale. That way we don't have to spec into as much on the tree, and it will give us more passive points for the tree to play with. This is increased critical damage because we are a Bleed Impale crit build. Brutality and Barrage for single target. Now, the build is played on a Gladiator, just because Gladiator gives so much movement speed, gives so much attack speed. We spec into Arena Challenger for Challenger charges, which you can only generate while you're using Flesh and Stone or another sand skill. That way we can get our Challenger charges to give us 2% more attack speed and movement speed per Challenger charge that we get, and we get 10 maximum Challenger charges, which is a 20% more multiplier to movement and attack speed. Which attack speed in this build is really important for single target bossing. In any build that I have ever played, I have always learned that map clear is the easiest thing you can get, but boss DPS is where the challenge really lies at. So we spec into Arena Challenger not only for the movement speed, but also for the attack speed. We get Outmatch and Outlast for Frenzy Charge duration. We get a 25% chance to gain a Frenzy Charge on kill with main hand. Since we're using a bow, every kill is our main hand, so we always have that chance to gain Frenzy Charges. We also get 10% more physical damage while you're at your maximum Frenzy Charges. So it's still a more multiplier. We spec into Blood in the Eyes, which have a chance to cause bleeding, which is where we get most of our bleed chance from. It's from Blood in the Eyes, and it still saves us passive points to play with on the tree instead of having to spec into a lot of chance to bleed nodes. You also have Maim against bleeding enemies, which Maim makes the enemy take 10% increased physical damage, and we have a chance to blind bleeding enemies, which also lowers their accuracy, so you get hit less. So that's more of the defensive mechanic, is the blind from Blood in the Eyes. Gratuitous Violence is the bleed explodes that we get. It allows for a better clear I enjoy the sound of it. I think it sounds like popcorn, so I call it like a popcorn build. A lot of people say bleed explosions or whatever. Sounds like popcorn to me, so it's a damn popcorn build. But then you also get the 20% more physical damage over time, which we don't really care about in this particular build because we are not scaling our bleed damage at all. This is a on hit build. So, because we are bleed and we are impale, there are different ways for us to scale our damage. Now, the first way that I decided to scale my damage, for an example, could be off of the Impale gem itself, which I have right here. The Impale gives a 60% chance to impale enemies on hit. Now, you're going to want a 100% impale chance because impales are a lot of our damage anyways, but that's not the most important part. The most important part is the 40% increased impale effect. Now, if you didn't know, in POE, you can increase the effects of different mechanics within the game and they will act like more multipliers as the scaling of the effect starts at 0, and it will be a more multiplier up until 100%. And then after 100%, your damage kind of starts to cut in half. So, for example, this right here has a 40% increased impale effect, which is a 40% more multiplier to our impale damage. If I were to get 100 increased impale effect, it would be double damage per se. But if I went up and I got 200% increased impale damage, it would be 150%. So there is such thing as diminishing returns within Path of Exile, and if there's one thing that you want to stay away from, it is diminishing returns. So in our reality, this one impale support is more like a 40% more multiplier, but it's to our impales, which impales do not scale bleed either. We can also further scale our impale damage by grabbing impale effect off the tree, which I spec down here into merciless skewering, which gives a 15% chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks and 5% increased impale effect. Another node leading up to vicious skewering gives a 6% increased impale effect. You can increase the damage of your impale by increasing the effect of the impale up to 100 if you can get that much. Another way to scale impale is by adding more impales. So I have a Watcher's Eye. Where's my Watcher's Eye at? That's my Lethal Pride. Right here, this Watcher's Eye. It says impels you inflict lasts 2 additional hits while using Pride. Now, at base, impel will allow you to inflict 5 impels. But I did some research on the wiki, and in an article that I had read, it had stated something along the lines that you will not, that your maximum impel damage starts at 7 impels. Well, at base, you only get 5. With this Watcher's Eye Jewel, you get 2 additional hits, which is like 2 additional impels, which brings that 5 up to 7 impels. So now you're at maximum impel damage. Another way that I increase this further is the Forbidden Jewels, which I have right here. I have the Forbidden Flesh and I have the Forbidden Flame. These are very expensive. That Watcher's Eye probably is like 2x. Depending on how much currency you can make, the only roll that you want on this Watcher's Eye is the impels you inflict last 2 additional hits. You can further increase it while you're using Pride to probably get something like double damage while using Pride. You can increase your physical damage while using Pride. But the main stat you want for the Watcher's Eye, if you're able to get one, is impels you inflict last 2 additional hits. The Forbidden Flame and the Forbidden Flesh probably together is 10 to 15x, depending on price fluctuation. The the allocation from these gems are Master of Metal. Since we are playing a duelist, we not only have the access to the uh, the Gladiator, but we could also add on a different ascendancy, just one of them though. So we decided Master of Metals because Master of Metal gives one additional impale, which will bring that 7 impels up to 8, therefore increasing our damage further. But also Master of Metals gives 1000 armor if you have impaled a enemy recently, which is like the defensive mechanic of Master of Metals. And 1000 armor may not seem like a lot, but it's better than having 0 armor. So not only will not only will Master of Metal give 1 impel and give armor, it also gives added flat physical damage per impel. I think it's 6 to 12 added flat physical damage, and then you would take that and multiply that by 7, since we have, or multiply it by 8 since we have 8 impels, which is just a ton of flat physical damage when it comes to having our impels. But that's sort of how I scaled the impel damage. There are a lot of nodes on the tree, such as forceful skewering. You have the merciless skewering. You have, where's another impel node at? Another impel node is up over here, harpooner, to give chance to impels to increase your impel effect. Um, Play with it if you decide to play an impel or a bleed build, just to see what you like. Allow it to fit your play style. Change it up. Maybe I'm doing something that you might not agree with. Sit back, change it, play with it, see what you like. But that's how I did it. Increasing the impel effect and the number of impels was one way I scaled my impel damage. But then we also have bleeding. Now, bleed in this build isn't really meant to do damage. Bleed in this build is more of a utility mechanic that we're using, such as maim. Maim is a physical skill. Maim. It makes them take more physical damage. We are all physical damage because of brutality. So not only do we get maim against bleeding enemies, we also have that chance to blind against bleeding enemies, which is again defensive. I spec'd over here into bloodletting, and that was just for 80% increased critical strike chance against bleeding enemies. Bleed in this build is not meant to do any damage at all. Bleed in this build is used as a utility mechanic. We're not scaling bleed. We're getting things out of bleed though. Um Now maim, for example, will increase the damage by 10% that they take. There are also cluster jewels and nodes that will allow you to deal additional damage to maimed enemies. You can do a lot with maim. You can scale maim itself. And since we have a 100% chance to maim against bleeding enemies, if you wanted to, you can mess around with trying to scale maim. I didn't, because it didn't really fit my play style, I guess. But bleed is just a utility mechanic, so we're not really scaling bleed, we're using bleed. This is a crit build. So this bow has a 8.64% critical strike chance. That is the base critical strike chance. That's a pretty high critical strike chance. Is this the best bow in the world? No, not by any means. This being a bow build relies heavily on the bow damage. But what's so cool about this bow is the 8.64% critical strike chance. Now, what this allows us to do is crit a lot more without having to spec into so much critical strike chance on the tree. We don't really have to get that much critical strike chance on our gear. 8.64% critical strike chance is a lot of critical strike chance. Now, let me go to my hideout real quick. And let me show you the base critical strike chance that I have just standing in my hideout. Let me be sure that I have all my auras on. I have my auras on. Let's so this is going to be for my frenzy. Um let's see. Critical strike chance at base just standing in my hideout is 36.98%, which means I have a 36.98% critical strike chance. That's not including the critical strike chance from the bleed or the critical strike chance from other means like my flasks that give critical strike chance. So we easily already have enough critical strike chance just standing in my hideout to utilize crit multipliers, which is what we did. On all my gear, except for the helmet, I have crit multiplier. I didn't get any more crit chance because of the bow. I no longer need crit chance. I crit enough as it is. So I have 34% crit multiplier on the quiver. You can also add additional flat physical damage, which will help out with your damage a lot, but crit multiplier on the bow, crit multiplier on the ring, crit multiplier on this ring. We have crit multiplier on the amulet. We have crit multiplier not on the gloves, which is an upgrade that we can get, but I don't think you can get crit multiplier on the gloves. Even on the bow comes with 34 crit multiplier. Over here on the tree, we got Heartseeker, which is crit multiplier. We spec'd into critical mastery to deal 25% crit strike multiplier against unique enemies. With Frenzy, we're even using the increased critical damage support, which gives 148 crit multiplier. Once you get a pretty high dealing critical strike chance bow, you no longer need to spec that much into critical strike chance on the tree, just because that's a fuck ton of crit strike chance. We did in fact go into King of the Hill, which increases our critical strike chance even further, but the nodes leading up to King of the Hill give crit multiplier, crit multiplier, crit multiplier. As you can see up here, we're not using a Lionized Fall. We're not using backstabbing. We didn't spec into Claws of the Magpie. Nodes like that are more of a luxury, I guess you can say. So we spec'd into a lot of crit. We're also increasing our critical damage with our spell suppression mastery, which I did spec over here and inveterate, which will give you spell suppression, but the mastery will increase your critical strike chance by chance to suppress spell damage. So you can only get up to 100% chance to suppress spell damage, so that's 100% critical strike chance, the same as King of the Hill. So we have a lot of critical strike chance in the build. We're getting a lot of our spell suppression from like Quick Step, which increases our movement speed, but it also gives us, you know, spell suppression. We have the movement and spell suppression nodes leading up to and after it. We have spell suppression on our armor. This is a 30% chance to suppress spell damage. So our spell suppression right now, just sitting in the hideout, is at 100%. Spell damage suppression chance 100%, which is a really, really good incentive to get 100% spell suppression. It is. Because not only is spell suppression good for defenses, but I mean, come on, you get damage out of it. Why not? There's no reason for you not to have 100% spell suppression. The higher your crit chances, the more damage you're gonna do anyway. So the higher your spell suppression is, the more damage you're gonna do. It's just a great fucking incentive for you to spec into more spell suppression chance. So beyond all of these crit nodes, how else am I scaling my damage? Well, like I explained earlier, there are things called diminishing returns, which, if you look at the attack speed nodes over here near Master Fletcher, they give increased damage with bows, increased damage over time with bow skills, increased damage with bows, increased damage with bows, increased damage with bows. Um, Eventually you will hit so many increases just off of specking into things like crit and into things like attack speed that you will start experiencing diminishing returns, because like I said before, it can go up to 100 before you start getting your damage cut in half. So that's something I tried to stay away from in this particular build. I didn't want to experience too many diminishing returns. Um so I had to find other means to scale my damage so I wouldn't experience these diminishing returns. But how did I do that? Well, I needed mana, right? So if there's one thing that I was always going to do, it was going to be leeching mana. You can get mana leech from a node like Essence Sap, just that 0.4% attack damage leeched as mana. You can get one little point up to like Spirit Void that will give you not only attack life leech but also mana leech. You can run over here to Clever Thief, which will also give you life leech but mana leech. Since we're not running off of regen, I needed a way to continue attacking. So I was like, I'm gonna end up getting leech anyway. So I decided on these cluster jewels, which is martial prowess, feed the fury, and fuel the fight. Now, martial prowess gives 20% increased attack damage. That gets thrown into the same pool as increased damage with bows. Now, each one of these nodes is already 30% increased damage with bows. This 20% increased attack damage makes it 50%. But it also gives attack speed, and it gives accuracy. It gives increased damage with ailments from attack fucking whatever I was about to say, but it gives 20% increase like bleed damage, I guess. I also spec'd in to feed the fury, which gives 30% increased damage while leeching, which is where the mana and life leech comes in. Now that takes our 50 up to 80. So now we have our 30% increased damage, but we get it while leeching. We're always attacking, so we're always leeching mana. This node has a 100% uptime anyways, but this gives a life leech, and it gives attack speed while leeching. Now, attack speed scales differently from the average damage with bows or increased attack damage, but as of right now, we are at 80% increased damage. I also spec'd in the fuel the fight, which is 8% increased attack speed, but it gives 20% increased damage while leeching. Well, guess what? We just hit our 100% increased. We have our 100% increased damage. Anything past this is going to be considered diminishing returns, but it gives 0.4% of attack damage leeched as mana, but it gives 8% increased attack speed. We want attack speed, which is why we spec'd into Matcher Fletcher. All these nodes give us attack speed. We have our damage while leeching, but I took it a bit further. On the gear with these gloves, I have 38% increased damage while leeching. So now we're at 138% increased damage. We're starting to experience diminishing returns. Even on the amulet, I have 38% increased damage while leeching. So we're around 170, maybe 180% increased damage at this point. If we get up to 200, that's equivalent to 150% more damage. But that's our damage while leeching. but we have already a ton of attack speed. So I needed the accuracy. I came down and I grabbed acuity, which gives 6% increased attack speed. The nodes leading up to it give attack speed and accuracy rating, attack speed accuracy rating. So we're starting to build up our attack speed even further. Of course, we got our defense nodes, our life nodes, like herbalism. We spec'd into all 3 nodes from Heart of the Oak. We have Revenge of the Hunted. We have the Bravery, along with the Art of the Gladiator, more attack speed, accuracy. We came down and we have our Golem's Blood. We have every life node for Thick Skin, so I mean, all the passive points that we saved from that one Impale gem, we could start putting it into defenses. But we're already experiencing diminishing returns from our increases, so I needed to find a different means to scaling my damage. So I thought about curses. I said, okay, what can I do with curses? Curses scale differently from the regular increases and reductions to generic damage. We're already experiencing diminishing returns, so I grabbed a ring that has curse enemies with vulnerability on hit, with 32% increased effect. That's basically equivalent to a 32% more multiplier to vulnerability. Now, there are a lot of map mods that will say reduced effect of curses. True, but if you don't get that mod, you do know that your vulnerability curse is doing more damage than just the regular curse because of that 32% increased effect. If you wanted to take it even further, they have on the helmet, it's the Searing Exarch Implicit that will increase the effect of vulnerability even further. So I said, alright, cool, I have a curse that scales differently from just the regular increases or reductions to generic damage. What else can I do? I decided to anoint Whispers of Doom. Whispers of Doom is 3 golden oils. It is very expensive, but it's another curse. So if you remember in the bow, I'm running Assassin's Mark with curse on hit, or mark on hit. Assassin's Mark gives a 1.5 to critical strike chance against the cursed enemies. So now we're just increasing our crit even further, but we don't really need crit chance anymore. It gives 50% increased critical strike multiplier. Critical strike multiplier is a multiplier. Seems like a good mark, cool. But just like we had the increased effect from the vulnerability curse down here on the tree, we grabbed Mark for Death, which gives us Calling Strike against marked enemies, but some of the nodes leading up to it is a 10% increased effect of your marks, 20% increased damage, which is not really what we need because that generic increased damage gets thrown into the same pool as the damage with leeching or the damage with bows. So we're already experiencing diminishing returns, but with the mark mastery, we also get to increase the effect of that mark by 25%. So we're looking at a 35% increase, which is about the same as this ring. This ring comes with a 32% increased effect. Well, we just increased the effect of our mark, of Assassin's Mark, by 35, which is equivalent to like a 35% more multiplier, meaning that you get a more critical, or you get, more critical strike chance from just the gem itself for cursed enemies, and it also gives you more critical strike multiplier, because it's increasing the effect of that mark by 35%, but now we have to deal with the mark on hit support. 16% reduced effect of your marks. That will take our 35 and drop it down to about 20, 19, which is still us benefiting from the mark and still getting that 19% increased effect. But then we also don't have to self-cast it. We get to run with it through maps, since it's a mark on hit support, we get to kind of run away from a boss and continue shooting rain of arrows if you can't get close enough to the boss to use frenzy. So the higher the gem level for mark on hit, or the higher the quality, it could take the reduced effect of your marks down even further. Now a 2120 gem of mark on hit support will give you 15% reduced effect, which is 1%, but in this case it's like a 1% more multiplier. But the 2023 is just cheaper. It is 16 reduced, but it's a cheaper gem to try to gear for. So we started increasing the effects of our curses because they're considered more multipliers. Well, what else can you do? I mean, I still wanted more damage. It wasn't really hitting bosses like I wanted it to, but it sure did help out with the DPS of this build a lot just by increasing the effect of the curses. We have frenzy charges. We're using frenzy, which is how we are generating charges in boss fights. It took me a while to figure out how I was going to do that because before I was using split arrow. So we grab the anomalous frenzy, we have that attached to the barrage support, and we're just grabbing frenzy charges off the tree. Savagery. We have fervor. We did not come up here to grab frantic or frenetic, which would be another 3%, but at base we have 3 already, plus these 2 give us 5, and frenzy charges give 3% more damage per frenzy charge, so that's a 15% more multiplier right there, just getting frenzy charges and continuing to generate our frenzy charges using frenzy as our single target damage. The cool thing about the curse on Assassin's Mark is 5% chance to grant about a power charge against the cursed enemy. So we have a chance to get power charges while we are attacking the boss that is cursed with Assassin's Mark, which not only raises our crit chance even further, but we also have that increased effect, which is probably, let's say, like a 5.5, maybe 6% chance to grant a power charge against bosses. So we're also getting more crit multi and more critical strike chance because when I'm bossing, I always have power charges when I'm attacking the boss anyways. You also get power charges going into the boss fight because it is attached to Rain of Arrows, which is our clear skill, and we kind of run around hitting rares a lot throughout the maps. So you kind of walk into the boss fight, just a regular map boss, with power charges already. More crit chance, more crit damage, frenzy with the additional projectile, anomalous, which you only get at 20% quality. You will not get the additional projectile unless you get 20% quality on that gem. So I stacked a little bit of frenzy charges, but I still wanted more out of the build, so you know, what else can I do? I started running auras. I used Pride, which is down here. Pride has a type of ramping damage to it. Now, when the enemy is first hit by Pride, automatically you get 20% more physical damage. But it rises up to 40% as they stay in the aura for 4 seconds. So you are getting more damage as long as the enemy is in the aura. And the max multiplier is 40% more physical damage. So while you're in a boss fight and you start, you know, popping your flasks, or you start switching your stances from from sand stance to another stance to using your frenzy charge. If you have a banner, you drop your banner. All that will probably take a second, maybe 2 seconds. But in that second or 2 seconds, you've already gained 10% more damage. So in a boss fight, Pride usually has 100% uptime, depending on how close you are on the tree. We are spec'ing to point blank. So you want to be close to the boss anyway to deal that 30% more damage from point blank. From what I've learned in POB is you can be up to 9 units away and still get maximum damage. If you hit 10 units away, then you start losing your damage, but it gives you a little space to be around. That way you don't have to be directly up on the boss, because you have 9 units to play with. From 1 unit to 9 units, you're going to do max damage either way. You just got to figure out how the game and its units work for distance, I guess. But up to 9 units, you get the max benefit out of point blank anyway. So I started using Pride. I wanted more attack speed, so I added haste. Haste gives 16, or it gives 17 increased attack speed, 9% increased movement speed. Of course, I wanted attack speed. Same thing on the quiver, attack speed. The gloves, attack speed. These ones give 15% increased attack speed, but I have the Searing Exarch lesser mod for 8% increased attack speed. We have 20% increased attack speed from the bow. Grace has given us attack speed. We're getting attack speed while we're leeching. We have attack speed from Matcher Fletcher. So it has a lot of attack speed in the build. We're also getting attack speed from Art of the Gladiator, which is 10% increased attack speed. So I wanted more attack speed. The faster I attack, the more damage I deal. Attack speed, I mean, is sort of like a more multiplier, I guess you can say. But that's debatable. So I wanted more attack speed. So I grabbed Pride. I ended up grabbing Haste. Still running Flesh and Stone. And I have Precision. Just for the 20% crit chance. But it's mainly for the flat number and accuracy. Because getting a flat number and accuracy, if you check over here in these nodes, like Acuity is all increased. It gives 100% increased accuracy rating, which is cool. Precision gives 93. So that gives the 20% increased, the 10% and 10%. So like this 40% increase to accuracy, something to scale to. Over here at Master Fletcher, I believe this gives another 20% increased accuracy rating. So that flat number is something the accuracy can scale to, and it gives a little bit of crit chance, so why not? But I started looking at the auras as another way to scale my damage. But then I have 2 really big auras and 2 not so big auras. How did I fit all these into the build? Well, I have an Enlighten support. It's Enlighten level 3. I dropped this in a map and I leveled it myself. It took me a while to level it. I did not purchase this. I leveled this Enlighten support myself. But I have Enlighten attached to Haste. It's attached to Pride. It's also attached to the Divergent Flesh and Stone. Before I forget, Divergent Flesh and Stone gives you 14% increased damage if you've changed your stance recently. So as long as you're walking into a boss fight, you're going to change from whatever stance you're in, which I think is your sand stance. You're going to switch into the other stance. And for 4 seconds, basically for the time that it takes for Pride to hit maximum effect, you will be dealing 14% increased damage. But we're already experiencing diminishing returns from increased damage. If you wanted to take it a little further, I'm pretty sure there's another one that gives something different. That's the anomalous one. I can't really tell you what it does, but I'm pretty sure it's more expensive than the increased damage. But yeah, so these are just the auras, but I did spec from the tree after grabbing bloodletting and grabbing merciless skewering. I have also the Crimson Dance, just because, you know, we're not scaling bleed, but I guess Crimson Dance works better. But it's over here at Champion of the Cause. So what Champion of the Cause does is the nodes leading up to it give us aura effect. 6% increased effect of non-curse auras. Well, we don't really have any effect at all, so that one node is like a 6% more multiplier to our auras. Same as we scaled our curses, or our curse and our mark, increased effect. Same as the impale, increased effect. So let's do the same to our auras. So to the nodes leading up to Champion of the Cause, you get increased effect. You have increased area of effect, which we don't really care about because Pride really doesn't help out anybody in your group. The precision is like level 1, so that's really not going to help anybody in the group. You're using flesh and stone, that's not going to help anybody in the group. The only one that might help in a group is haste, but we don't really care about aura effect. And then we end up grabbing Champion of the Cause, but one node right above Champion of the Cause is Reservation Efficiency. And that is what decreases the mana that it costs to run your auras. Also, with the Reservation Mastery, we have 15% increased mana reservation of skills. So that's 15% plus this 8%, just for the reservation, plus what we have on the Enlighten, which is the reservation even further. But it increases the effect of our aura. If we wanted to go even further with the aura effect, we can spec up over here into something like Charisma. And Charisma will also give you mana reservation. It will give the increased area of effect. It will give, again, mana reservation, but the mastery, you can get, where is it at? Auras from skills have 15% increased effect on you, which means that you now get a 15% increased effect of the aura on you. Now, if I come over here and I scroll over precision, it has 32% increased area of effect already. The increases to the auras don't have anything to do with the area of effect, but it will increase what it does to you. So let's say you'd have to do some math here, but Pride plus the 15 and what 6 would be 21% increased effect. And then we're also getting more increased effect of our aura from the Searing Exarch lesser implicit modifier, which is a 9 to 10% increased effect of non-curse auras. So what is that, like a 30% increased effect? And then there's a way to do the math on it to the 20% to 40% from Pride and how much that increase would do it, which if you do end up getting the 30%, it's like 30% more multiplier to the auras. I didn't. I stuck with what I had on the armor, which is the 9% increased effect, and the 6% increased effect from the node leading up to Champion of the Cause, which is just 6. So together, that's a 15% increased effect, which is like a 15% more multiplier. What else did I do to increase my damage? We went over the impels, we went over what we're doing with bleed, we went over the crit, we went over the curses, how we increase the effect of our curses. We also went over how we increase the effect of our auras, but there's still one thing I haven't gone over, and that is overwhelm physical damage reduction, which again acts like a more multiplier. So, as I spec'd into Merciless Skewering, there is a Impale Mastery that impale damage to enemies impelled by you, overwhelm 20% physical damage reduction. Now, you could look at physical damage reduction similar to elemental penetration, but for physical skills. The difference between physical damage reduction and elemental penetration is elemental penetration can put the elemental resistances of the enemies into negative numbers. You can put them at -10 to elemental resistances, -20, -30 to elemental resistances, which is what makes Omniscience so powerful, is its ability to have so much penetration. But while we're dealing with physical damage reduction, it could only go up to 100%. So we're getting 20% physical damage reduction for the Impale on the Impale Mastery. We're also getting Master of Blades, which is another 10 to physical damage reduction. But I needed the Impale chance, so instead of grabbing the physical mastery of overwhelm 15% physical damage reduction, I got 20% chance to impale enemies on hit. Now, if you wanted to go around and start messing with the build yourself, these are things you could look into. Trying to figure out, overwhelms 15% physical damage reduction is like elemental pen for physical skills, and right now we're only sitting at 35%, or wait, 30% penetration from Master of Blades and the Impale chance. Is that it? Yeah, that's every way that I scaled my damage. Let's talk about Lethal Pride now. Lethal Pride has a lot of benefits to using it. One main benefit is it will not change any of your nodes into anything new. What Lethal Pride does is adds to the nodes that you already have. A lot of people may pick up a Timeless Jewel and place it somewhere where they have a lot of nodes allocated, and it just changes every single one of their nodes into something new. Lethal Pride doesn't do that. For example, if I click over Herbalism, I still get 10% increased maximum life. I still have 30% increased flask recovery rate. But on top of it, I now have 20% increased armor. If I come over here to Intuition, I still get the spell suppression. I have the increased evasion rating. I have the increased maximum life, but now I'm also getting 4% of attack damage leached as life. If I come over here to Quick Step, I still get that spell suppression, I get that movement speed, but I'm also getting 4% increased max life. It does not change any of these nodes into anything new, even with these small dexterity nodes. I'm still getting 10 dexterity for each node, but on top of it, I'm also getting +2 strength, +2 strength, +2 strength. Over here at Acuity, I'm still getting the attack speed and the accuracy rating, but I'm also taking 10% reduced extra damage from critical strikes. If I spec over here, or if I look over here at Master Fletcher, or I look at King of the Hill, I'm still getting 100% critical strike chance with bows from King of the Hill, but on top of that, I'm also getting 20% increased stun duration, which we don't stun, so that really does nothing for us. Over here at Master Fletcher, I'm still getting the increased attack speed, the accuracy is still there, the projectile speed is still there. Adding on top of it's giving me +1 maximum fortification. Is that doing anything with my build? Not at all, because I don't use fortify. But it's not changing it. But the one thing that makes the Lethal Pride stand out from any other timeless jewel, in my opinion, is right here, where I have Inveterate. I still have the spell suppression, which is that 12% chance to suppress spell damage. I have the prevent 3% of suppressed spell damage. But if you see what adds to that, it's a 5% chance to deal double damage, which is what makes Lethal Pride so good. If you're having problem trying to get strength, Lethal Pride will add all the strength that you need. Um, every one of these dex nodes, they get +2 strength. For this particular jewel, I think they could roll up to +4, but this one only gets +2. On the smaller nodes, like the spell suppression nodes leading up to Invitorate, it is a +4 strength, +4 strength, +4 strength. You will not need to use or allocate a node like Beef. You will not need to allocate a node like Prowess. This one jewel will basically give you all the strength you need. Another cool thing about strength is it gives you a fuck ton of life. Just with these little life nodes that I have right now, I'm sitting at 4.8 thousand, which probably isn't a lot compared to hardcore standards, but I'm truly a softcore player. But still, 4.8 life is a lot of life. Over here at this node, Quick Step, it gave 4% increased maximum life. This one node gives me spell suppression, it gives me movement speed, and I get maximum life. 4% increased maximum life is equivalent to a life node that leads up, no, that's 6%. That's 5%. Right here. Leading up to Heart of the Oak. These two life nodes give 4% increased maximum life. This Lethal Pride gave me a way to increase my maximum life even further while capping my strength if you needed strength in your build, but it also gives me double damage. Now, double damage could roll, I think, up to like 5 times on a Lethal Pride, but those are exceptionally fucking rare. And if you ever do come across one, it's probably going to go for couple hundred exalts, couple mirrors maybe. If you come across a Lethal Pride that has like 5 double damage nodes on it, that is a fuck ton. This one has 1, but it was also in a place that I already had allocated in. If you wanted to experiment with a Lethal Pride, you can pick up 2 or 3 cheap ones. You can use divine orbs on these Lethal Prides, and you can socket it into the place where you want to use it. For example, do I have a divine orb? I do not. I have a tab though, I'll do that later. But as you can see, what I'm doing is I have 2 Lethal Prides. And I will take these 2 Lethal Prides, and I will divine these 2 Lethal Prides, and keep this one that I'm already using off to the side, and I will see if I can hit that double damage mod somewhere else, like King of the Hill, or if I can get it on Master Fletcher or Heartseeker. Double damage is double damage, but it's a 5% chance to deal double damage, which is what makes Lethal Pride so fucking good. But yeah. If you're having strength problems, use the Lethal Pride. That's basically it for this build. This build is mostly evasion based, so you can technically spec into all the defenses that you want in the world, and you're still gonna get one-shotted because it's evasion. So if like you're running around and you lack defenses because you're getting one-shotted, it's because you're playing an evasion build. Yeah, that's what this build is. Here's the outline of the map tree again, and I'm going to post the POB to this particular build in the description. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go on to something a whole lot easier. I'm going to play an elemental hit build, which is going to be for the newer players because it's so much cheaper to spec into, and you don't have to spend 200 exalts to a couple mirrors just to get a fucking physical bow to actually like do exceptionally well in the game. Elemental hit has all the damage on the gem. This being a bow build, it relies heavily on the bow. Anyway, that's exactly how I scaled my damage. I still need a enchantment for the helmet. I don't have a good helmet enchant. I have no enchantment for the gloves, which, before I forget, back to physical damage reduction, on these gloves you could use the Eater of Worlds. This one is the lesser, just because I'm not trying to use all the grand ones I have, but you can get 9% physical damage reduction on the gloves, which will bring what are 30? The 20 plus the 10 are 30 to 39. So that's like 39 pen, I guess. Yeah. Of course, with every gear that every build that you want to play, you want to figure out a way on how to cap all your resistances. All my resistances are capped. Spell suppression chance is at 100%. Don't forget, your spell suppression is also your critical strike chance, which will give you more damage. You want to try to get some chaos resistance. Before I forget, if you're having trouble capping your chaos resistance and you have no way to come and grab these cluster jewels, you got no way to get a lethal pride, you have no way to grab a watcher's eye, this is what I suggest you to do. I want you to grab these life nodes like bravery, golem's blood, heart of the oak. I want you to grab thick skin and herbalism, and then I want you to grab revenge of the hunted. Not only do I want you to grab these nodes, I want you to fill out these nodes all the way. Now, the reason I want you to fill these nodes out all the way is because it will give you a surviving chance in the maps. Now, from what I've learned through running through maps, is you can be really tanky and not kill things too fast and still die because you weren't able to kill the mobs fast enough, which is an ongoing problem. But it will give you a fighting chance. Fill out all of these life nodes, cap your spell suppression chance. If you can't get spell suppression on your armor, if you can't get spell suppression on your gloves or your helmet or your boots, you can spec into things like entrench, which you're probably going to be down this way anyways because of thick skin. That will give you more spell suppression. You can grab quick step. You can grab whatever this word is, invitorate. But then there's also a mastery that will give you 10% chance to suppress spell damage if your boots, helmet, and gloves all have evasion. That doesn't mean that they need to be completely evasion based. They could be evasion energy shield like this helmet, or they could be, I got a lot of evasion energy shield, don't I? Or they could be evasion armor like this. No, that's not even evasion armor. But yeah, they just have to have evasion armor, or evasion on it, and then try to cap your spell suppression that way. What else? If you can't get a super high crit chance bow like I have right here, you don't really want to go over like the 8.64%. I mean, you can, and then spec into a bunch of crit multiplier. But there's crit chance nodes on the tree, like King of the Hill and Heartseeker. There's more crit chance up here if you wanted to with a Lion Eyes, which I think is like 4 to 5 chaos. you can grab backstabbing, and that will help cap your critical strike chance. There's a lot that you can do to play with the build until you're able to just farm maps. And with maps, you'll generate currency. I just alch my maps and I go. I've been making most of my money by running the the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds. They will drop 4 items, and the 2 most expensive ones are the Incandescent Invitations and the Screaming Invitations, which sell for like 1.4 exalts each. So you have to get up to T14 maps. You could run T14 maps, and it takes 24 maps. In the meantime of you running these maps, just know that by the time you get done with that, you have at least an X coming your way. And then you can take that X and save it, or you can invest that into gear, spell suppression, critical strike chance, life. Since I attack so fast, I had a problem with mana, so I have non-channeling skills, have -7 to mana cost on the rings. I was highly debating on also getting negative mana cost on the amulet, but I didn't, because right here in this jewel socket, am I running it? No. I was running a replica Conqueror's Efficiency, but then I had felt like that would have brought my mana cost too low and I would no longer be able to leech. And we kind of need that leech because that's a lot of damage for us. So there are nodes on the tree if you're also having mana problems. You can run something like the replica Conqueror's Efficiency, which will give negative. Here, let me show you what it looks like if you don't know what it looks like. This is what it looks like. The unique, the jewels, and bless me. This is what a Lionized Fall looks like. That's turns melee and melee weapon type modifiers into bow modifiers. But Replica Conqueror's Efficiency looks like... Where's it at? Here, let me just type it in. Do I no longer have it? Huh. I don't know what I did with it. I was going to show you what it looks like. Unless I do, in fact, still have it here in the build somewhere. I don't think I do, though. That's the Watcher's Eye. That's the Lethal Pride. Those are the Forbidden Flesh. Yeah, I don't know what I did with it. Anyway, you can try to go to the trade site. In the search bar, type in Replica Conqueror's Efficiency. And it will give you a price for it. I think those go for like 10 chaos, but it decreases your mana reservation. You can also spec into a node down here like Revelry, which will give 10% increased effective non-curse auras on enemies, which is like Pride, I guess, since that makes the enemies take more physical damage. This can be another 10% increased effect of that aura, but you really want it for the Mana Mastery, and the Mana Mastery gives you 10% reduced mana cost of skills. So if you don't have a way to get like the negative mana cost rings, you can always spec right here, which will also increase your aura effect further and give you reduced mana cost of skills. If you're still having trouble sustaining mana, you can spec up here into Clever Thief. 1% of the attack damage will be leached as life and as mana, and that should help you sustain your mana leech even better until you're able to like, I guess, figure something out. There's also the Leech Mastery node, which will give you 30% increased damage while leeching, which is sort of like the Fuel the Flight and the Feed the Fury nodes until you're able to get a cluster jewel like this. 8 passive points. The small passive, the small passives give 12% increased damage with bows, but we're already experiencing diminishing turns from the increases and reductions, so that really doesn't matter. But it also gives 12% increased damage over time with bows. So I mean, even without trying to scale any type of bleed in this build, you're still going to scale bleed with everything else because of all of the damage over time with bow skills that you get, which works out pretty good. But yeah, this is probably going to be one of, if not the final update for this build. Um, Before I forget anything else, I do have an enhanced support. I have enhanced support connected to Blood Rage in the helmet. Blood Rage at level 21, and it has 20% quality, which gives attack speed because we already have a lot of attack speed. Um, it also gives 1.2% of attack physical damage leached as life. This particular Blood Rage gives 24% increased attack speed. And the reason it does that is because we have a 2120 Blood Rage, but we have it connected to a level 3 Enhance. Now, level 3 Enhance gives 16 quality to the support gems, and Blood Rage with quality gives more attack speed. If I press Alt, the additional effects from quality is 0 to 5% attack speed. But because I have the 20% quality plus the 16% quality from the enhanced support, it brings that 5 to 9% increased attack speed. And with the 15% increased base attack speed from the level 21 gem, together that gives us 24% increased attack speed. Also, Lightning Golem 2020, which also gives us attack speed. The Golem grants 9% increased attack speed. And I also have that connected to Precision. Like, we don't have enough attack speed from Grace and the Tree. We're getting more attack speed from Blood Rage and the Lightning Golem. You also want attack speed on your Quiver. And if you can get a bow that has attack speed on it, go for it. But the bow is everything in a bow build. You want a high fizz bow. For the flasks that I'm running an Onslaught flask for attack speed. It also has 32% increased duration and attack speed during the flask effect. This is the Quicksilver flask, which is movement speed. It has 29% increased duration and movement speed. This is a quartz flask, which gives spell suppression and it gives phasing. We don't give a shit about phasing with this quartz flask because we are already at 100%. We're here for the phasing. And this has a 12% chance to gain a flash charge when you deal a critical strike, which really doesn't work that well, but it gives us 42% increased evasion during the flask effect. So phasing and evasion. This is the Diamond Flask, which increases our global critical strike chance. And it has increased charge recovery, but also 47 increased critical strike chance during the flask effect. So this is like 147% increased critical strike chance. And at base, just sitting inside of our hideout, we have where's our crit chance at? Our crit chance is 36.98. That's without the crit chance from the bleed and all the flasks. So close to 50%. And after that, stat crit multiplier, which is why I have no crit chance on the gear at all. All crit multi though. But yeah, that's the last thing. I hope you got something out of it. That's all the different ways that I scaled my damage. If you got something out of this, cool. Give it a like, thumbs up, whatever. Um, and I'm gonna be off to go work on an elemental hit build. Probably going to be either a Deadeye, because I haven't played a Deadeye in a long time, or it's gonna be a Raider. But I think I might go with Deadeye. I don't know how I'm gonna do that yet. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.